Michael Montero with the president of CompuBox, Mr. Bob Cannobio. Thank you for taking some time to talk with us about what you guys do.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it. We got the New York to LA, East Coast, West Coast thing happening right here. So, you know, it just seems, I wanted to talk to you because with the rise of social media, it seems that every single time there's any kind of close, controversial fight, there's people on Twitter, there's videos on YouTube going back and forth talking about compu crap and just criticizing you guys. And sometimes the punch numbers are good, sometimes the punch numbers are bad, depending on who wins or loses. Have you noticed a rise in the criticism as social media has become more popular?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's more outlets now. More people have a voice thanks to social media. You know, coupled with the fact that in boxing, as you know, everybody's an expert. Everyone has an opinion. And so, you know, it comes with the territory. But yeah, there's been an increase in attention paid to CompuBox. Yeah, I will say that. Some positive, some negative. But again, wouldn't you say the nature of social media, it's a negative tool? It can be.
Yeah, Twitter.
So, you know, people can say something, they can tweet something that they wouldn't say normally to your face. They can say it, and so be it. But, you know, like I said, it comes with the territory. We've been in business 32 years. If we weren't accurate for the most part, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So, like I said, you know, it comes with the territory.
Well, let's back up. You talked about 32 years. You guys got started in 1985. Let's just talk about how you got started, your personal background, and then I want to talk a little bit about what CompuBox was supposed to be, what it is now, your mission statement, all that kind of stuff. I want to get that out there.
Yeah, we started in 1985. I was a researcher at Sports Illustrated. At the time, there was a Time Life building in New York. HBO was in its infancy at the time. They were in the same building. So I had access to the Sports Illustrated library, which is one of the most extensive libraries around. I had an interest in boxing, of course. Ross Greenberg, who was then a producer for HBO, who went on to become the executive vice president or executive of HBO, was in the same building. I went down, introduced myself, and offered my services should there be any research necessary. He was working on a Boxing's Best series. I got the job as a researcher. One thing led to another. I started as a production assistant for HBO traveling. Got familiar with the road a bit. And then I left Sports Illustrated to join a company called Sports Information Database. This was in '85. This is when portable computers were just coming on the scene. Not laptops. These were portable computers that weighed like 30 pounds. They were the thinking behind this database was you would take this computer to an event, log in the information, and send it back to the database. So one day we're there, and a guy comes in with a program. He had just been at the U.S. Open, and he created a box score for tennis. He created, first serve aces, whatever it entails. He created this box score for tennis. So I'm sitting there looking at my partner at the time, Logan Hobson. I said, "Man, maybe we could do this for boxing." One thing leads to another. We had the program written. We took it to some, off TV fights. Got the kinks out. Went to MSG. Madison Square Garden had a monthly series at the time. John Condon, who was at the time the voice of MSG, we said, "We have this new program. Would you mind if we use it tonight? With no charge. We just want to check, see how it plays." He said, "Yeah, sure." We recorded that. Took that recording to Ross Greenberg at HBO. We walk into the meeting. We show him what we got, and he goes, "Yeah, I like it. Yeah, let's do it." I'm like, that was it. So it was really, a matter of being in the right place at the right.
Difficulties got cut off a little bit, but so that's how you guys got started. And now from that point to here, over 30 years, I know you guys have made some innovations, some improvements of boxing historians, former fighters, and I think some journalists, right? So you guys have a boxing knowledge as part of your staff, right?
Well, that's what we look for. When I look for a counter, I look for somebody that's been in the ring as a fighter, former fighter, somebody that's been ringside, who could who wouldn't be intimidated by by the big fight, or guys that just have a love for boxing. So it's a combination of a couple of factors, but they have to obviously have an extensive boxing background before they get on the keys.
Right. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about that because I've seen even articles on some of these fringe websites that say you guys have two just interns, two kids, just hitting buttons ringside. And I don't think people realize there's a lot of experience with the people counting the punches.
That's annoying. That's really annoying. Two geek, when they hear computer, they say we're computer nerds, two geeks.
Right, yeah.
Hitting keys, all right, but as you said, there's a lot more that goes into training and counting. These guys work on. I send them tapes, DVDs. They work on these tapes for months until I feel like they're ready to go to the next level. So maybe they are geeks, maybe they're not. But
boxing geeks.
They're trained geeks. Let's put it that way.
Hey,
so,
they're knowledgeable, trained geeks.
You don't just jump on the keys because you can spell CompuBox. There's training involved.
Okay, and I want to clear something up too, where I know there's a lot of confusion. The network hires you guys, right? There might be in some instances where if a promoter's doing a private pay-per-view, like Top Rank did recently, I think, with Valdez Mariaga, where the promoter might hire you. But generally speaking, it's the network contracting you guys for a particular fight. It's not a sanctioning body, not a fighter, nothing like that. It's the network.
Right. Our deals are with Showtime, with HBO, with ESPN. I mean, they sign the checks. Like you said, there may be an occasional fight. We will do a Top Rank show on occasion where it's a small show. We'll deal directly with Top Rank, but 98% of our work, our contracts are with the networks and always have been.
Is it per fight, or do you do like an annual budget with, let's say, Showtime or HBO, or is it per project? Because I know with fights, every deal is different, right? Every promotion's different. And I think a lot of fans don't understand that fighters have exclusive deals, but every single fight is a different deal, essentially, inside the deal. Is that how CompuBox is, or do you guys have budgets?
No, we have a contract, like an annual contract. Some years, some are 2 years, some are 3 years, depending, what we can get, what the market bears. There's rates, too. Different entities pay a different rate, but it's basically contract. So I get paid a rate per show over the course of the contract.
So if you have a deal with let's say HBO, and let's say it's 18 months, there's a rate specified in that contract, and right. I would imagine if it's a 4-round fight versus a 12-round fight, obviously there's a different rate. Is there a different rate for pay-per-view fights or championship fights or anything like that, or is it pretty much standard?
It's pretty standardized, but there is a slight bump with between, say, a Showtime Championship Boxing and a pay-per-view. They're all little bumps in the contract. Same thing with HBO. They're graded according to to the quality of the fight. So, but not a big bump, but there are different tiers, let's say, to each contract.
Okay, there's different tiers, but so I just wanted to clear this up because again, this misinformation I've heard is like if you guys say are tracking the numbers to a Canelo Triple G, you're getting a chunk of the pay-per-view, or it's much higher. Right. It's just a standard.
We get paid by the punch, you mean? That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, right. I've heard all kinds of crazy shit.
You'd have guys throwing 5,000 punches, man.
There you go.
But no, we don't get. We have a flat fee going in for pay-per-view, a flat fee going in for championship boxing, a flat fee for a negotiated fee for a show box. So all of that is, it's done. It's on paper ahead of the event.
Okay. Is there different rates for an HBO fight in America versus, let's say, over in Asia or in the UK or Germany or something like that? Because the foreign fights, the foreign markets have been exploding in boxing in the last 20 years, especially really in the last few years over in London and stuff. Is there a different rate for that stuff?
No, if Showtime, HBO, or now ESPN covers the event, we go by the agreed upon rate. There's no change in our rate. I may pay my operators a little extra for an extra day or two on the road, but I eat that. That's my expense. But the rate is negotiated, and regardless of where the fight is, that's the negotiated rate.
The one thing I saw an interview you did recently with Ring Magazine with Mr. Rosenthal, that it was a fact that like I already knew, but it comes as a surprise to a lot of people, which I didn't know this was like common knowledge. But there's a lot of fights where you guys are watching it and you're doing it remotely, especially if it's a fight overseas. So in that case, it just does that come down to budget, where you just can't send a guy to Malaysia to cover a fight, and you have to do it remotely? Is that pretty much what it comes down to?
That was one of the most determining factors. A couple of years back, I could sense the budgets were tightening in boxing, and I knew we could do fights remotely because we had done a lot of the smaller shows remotely. When we do research, Lee Groves is my top guy. He's a great researcher, great writer, just such an asset to CompuBox. He does when we have a fighter who say we don't have any data on, say, I don't know, Nicholas Walters, for instance. We'll need a couple of fights on him to build up his profile. He'll count past fights of his off tape. So, and then we'll use it towards the research. So I knew that we could perform the same service remotely, because with television the way it is, with technology the way it is, there's no drop off from being 3 rows back at ringside. I mean, we even have monitors at ringside, and just to look at when the fighters are against the ropes, we have monitors to help with the count. So, right. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. He for some reason, they thought they were, onto this big exclusive, this big exclusive event that CompuBox counts remotely. We've been doing it for years. I know Dan Raphael made a comment and mentioned it years ago that was the case. Dougie Fisher, right. I see in his mailbag, says they count some remotely, some live. So I don't think it was a big deal. And I know there is no noticeable drop off in the efficiency, because before we went remote, we counted fights that we did live, and then we counted them off of tape, and there was no noticeable drop off. So I really don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I thought was common knowledge, but it just wasn't. So I think it's been, what, 3 years? 2 or 3 years?
It's been about 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I've been ringside for a million fights, like amateur fights, pro fights, and there's a lot of times where I will watch the replay of the fight that night when I get home or something, and I see better seeing it on TV. In fact, I know a lot of people have suggested that judges should judge fights remotely because they're being influenced by the crowd so much. I wanted to talk about that, well, you know what? Okay, let me ask you this. And again, this I thought was common knowledge, but who sees your punch stats during a fight?
Who sees it?
Yeah, round by round, who's getting the information? And again, I already know, I just want to get it out there for people, because we in the media don't see it round by round.
Right.
The fighters don't see it, their corners don't see it. So it's pretty much the network people and you guys know. That's it.
That's it. The network, whoever we're working for, the stats are now interfaced with the truck, with the graphic generator. So we have the ability to put the numbers up in real time, which you often will see. You'll see a slider come up, and you'll see the numbers changing in real time. So really, the only people that see our stats are the operators and the network in the truck that we're working for. We'd love to put the stats out there in real time on social media, on Twitter, but the networks, they don't want that. They're paying for the privilege of having those numbers in real time. So be it. I mean, they see them and that's it. Until the fight's over, then we come out with the round by round, which is another. I guess we'll address that, but that's another misconception. People will look at the final stats and then they'll make their determination from looking at the final stats rather than break the fight down round by round.
Absolutely.
Which is, you could, like Pacquiao in the Horn fight, had a huge ninth round. It skewed the numbers a bit. Horn came back in the next round and actually threw and outlanded Pacquiao.
He won that round.
But everyone grasped onto he doubled them in connects, and they ran with that. Those who felt Horn won the fight, which, again, is a whole other story, but you need to look at the whole picture, not just the final stats. It's a round by round, a cumulative, like a line score in baseball. That's how, that's what people should grasp onto.
Yeah, one thing that, I just want to make sure people understand, the judges are not seeing these stats. They have absolutely no influence on the judges scoring the fight. They don't see the numbers until us in the media see it, and that's until right after the fight. There's generally a PR person who will come around, and different promoters do it different ways, but they will bring a sheet. It's one sheet that has the totals, right? Now what a lot of them do is they email it to us because it's more efficient for them, but I'll get emails hitting my phone, and that will have the round by round. It'll have some trending. Maybe if, one guy landed a lot more body punches than the other, we'll see some kind of notes. But that's it, and we're not getting that until after the fight. So your punch numbers have no influence on how the fight's being scored unless you count the unofficial scores of the HBO guys or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, but that was how the program was designed from the get-go. It was never designed to score fights. It's a barometer of a fighter's activity. That was our mission statement from day one.
That's right on your website.
Yeah, we're not scoring fights. We're giving you a fighter's activity. Has it evolved into more? Yeah, because of social media, because of some bad decisions, too. There's been a lot of bad decisions where our numbers have shown maybe the decision wasn't correct. This fighter threw more, landed more. Okay, but it was never designed to score a fight. So let's get that out. Let's get that out in the open right now as well. Right. And another thing, too, there's two operators. We have two operators watching one fighter each. These people who have an issue with CompuBox are sitting at ringside or they're sitting at home and they're watching the fight. They're trying to score the fight. In the case of some talent who have a problem with us, they have a producer in their ear and they're counting punches too. Man, that's some real talent to be able to wear four hats at once, and count punches on top of calling a fight, scoring a fight. So, we have one fighter each, and that's all my guys are watching, and myself too. One fighter, and I think that simplifies things a bit.
I think I know who you're talking about. And he used to be a pretty stand-up guy, but he's kind of gone off the deep end lately. A former fighter. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to go there, man.
Yeah, I got you. I know who you're talking about. We're here. Okay, let's see. You guys got into MMA a little bit recently, and I'm not an MMA guy. I don't really know anything about it, but I'm just curious. Have you noticed a different level of criticism, more or less, from the MMA people versus boxing?
Good question. No, we haven't. We got into MMA, I guess it was about 7 years ago when the UFC was blowing up with all the heavyweights, with Couture and Chuck Liddell and Brock Lesnar. And I'm sitting there watching a fight. I'm saying these events are pretty hot. We should find a way to get involved. So we had a program done, and we got a deal with Showtime, with Strikeforce. Back then, they were involved in MMA, and we currently do Bellator, and we're also doing this Professional Fight League, which was the old World Series of Fighting. They rebranded They're now the Professional Fight League. So yeah, we provide the stats for those events. And no, I haven't. Honestly, there hasn't been anywhere near the blowback for some reason with from the MMA fans as with the boxing. For some reason, I don't know why, but that's a good question.
I don't know what it is about boxing, but there just seems to be, it's just part of the culture of boxing, the criticism. And, you know, I've read books from the early 20th century, back when boxing was right up there with horse racing, you know, the biggest sport. And the newspaper clips back then, it was the same way 100 years ago. I don't know what it is about boxing, but it's so scrutinized. And for whatever reason, MMA hasn't caught up yet. But maybe it'll get there. I don't know. But
well, that may make my life miserable, but so be it if that's the case. But yeah, it's true. And like I said earlier, in boxing, everybody, you know, has an opinion. It's because of the passion, I think. Everybody, either you love boxing or you don't. There's no half-ass fans in boxing. Yeah. You're in it because you love it. You're friends to the strong opinions.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Everyone sees a fight a certain way. They may like a fighter, they may hate a fighter, and they're going to see things a certain way. So I think that adds to the strong opinion by so many boxing fans. They just can deal with it. But when people take, they'll take an occasional underhanded shot at us, that bothers me a bit with the territory.
Well, the Pacquiao-Horn fight, that was interesting to me because a lot of, you go back 2 years to the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, and a lot of the Pacquiao fans were saying that the punch numbers were bullshit for that fight, because in that fight, Mayweather essentially doubled Pacquiao's output. Now you come to the Pacquiao-Horn fight, and they're saying, oh, look at the punch numbers. Look at the punch numbers. He doubled Horn's output. Well, the punch numbers didn't work for you in that fight. Now they work for you in this fight. And that's what I see a lot of times on the social media. But, okay, let's talk about Pacquiao-Horn, because during that broadcast...
That's a good point, though, Michael. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. No, that's a good point. When the numbers agree with a particular writer, they love them. But when they disagree with what a fighter, what a writer or a journalist or a fan saw, then they're going to take issue with it. It depends on how it jives with what the individual is looking at.
Yeah, we have so many cases today in boxing where basically fans are being credentialed as media, guys with popular social media accounts on Twitter or whatever it is, or guys like Stephen A. Smith, who has a high profile on social media. He has he's calling a fight for ESPN. He doesn't know anything about boxing. So you have those situations now, and those guys can just rip the punch numbers or rip a decision or whatever and go nuts with it and exaggerate it. And a lot of casual sports fans are seeing that and say, yeah, boxing corrupt. That's just what I see over and over. That's what I saw Pacquiao-Horn. I thought Pacquiao won. You guys score fights too. Is that what you felt Pacquiao won?
I don't score. My gut, I'm watching, I'm working, I'm counting. But we're only watching one fighter. But you get a good sense of what's happening through the eyes of COMPUBOX. And yeah, I thought Pacquiao won the fight. I think that he showed age. He definitely slowed down. If you look at the numbers, we did an inside the 32% of his power shots, which was 10% lower than in his previous 5 fights. So he was off points. A lot of credit for doing better than expected. I think everyone was like, "Who the hell is Horn?" No one knows who this guy is. It's going to be a blowout. It's a setup fight. It's a money grab for Manny. No one knows Horn, and the guy fought better than expected. He took Manny out of his element. He did. He pressed the fight. Right. You got to give him his props for that. But he was missing. He was missing wildly with a lot of punches, but coming forward and throwing. So, in my book, and I've heard a lot of experts say, it's not what you throw, it's what you land. So, therefore, I have to, Horn came forward, made Manny uncomfortable, and fought better than expected. He just, he didn't land. He didn't land enough punches in my eyes to get the decision.
I'm so glad that you brought that little study up there where you compared the previous 5 fights, because I remember before Pacquiao fought Mayweather, I looked at the punch numbers of Manny's last 10 fights, And I saw a significant decline just in his output, not even accuracy. And there has been a decline in his accuracy, but he was throwing over 1,000 punches at one point. You know, you go back to the Clottey fight, the Margarito fight, and then he had started trailing off, I think, in 2012 when he fought Bradley, and then some of those other fights after. And just looking at punch numbers, I saw exactly how the fight with Mayweather was going to go. And I know you guys do that a lot. You guys will do reports. You sent me some of this stuff, and you know we've seen it posted out there in different sites over the years, where you guys can take all the data, because you have about 8,000 fights in a database. Everything's housed together, and you can run trending analysis reports, and you could say, based off the punch numbers, here's what we predict. And you guys are right 90% of the time, almost, it seems.
Well, yeah, I think it's 82, but thanks for thanks for boasting me 8%. But we'll try to get to 90 by the end of this year. No, but yeah, I mean, 8 times out of 10, there's upsets, but yeah, the numbers bear out what what people are seeing. It's from going back and looking at. We try to get at least 5 fights on each fighter. In some cases, there's more. Mayweather must have 30-something fights in the database from him. Guys that have been around longer, we have more fights on. But that's what we do. And it's more, which shows that CompuBox is more than just a live punch counting service. We go back and we analyze, like you said, and we do an analysis that I know the talent, I know the production people rely on. They value it. I know Jim Lampley has even cited it on one of the shows where we predicted, I think it was the Burchelt fight. We predicted a bloody victory, and it came out that way.
You even called the cuts. You guys even called the cuts. You had it all.
Yeah. So, and that's Lee Groves, though. I can't take all the credit for that. That's Lee Groves who and I'll come in. He'll write the text, the pros, and I'll come in with the hard numbers, the inside the numbers part of the report. It's like a collaboration.
So he'll give you the analysis from a journalist point of view.
Yeah, he weaves the tale. He's a tremendous writer. Great wordsmith, but he also understands the numbers. So he'll work in numbers, and then I'll come in with the last 5 fights, last 8 fights, and then we'll come in with their profile. And like I said, I know it helps the talent. Showtime uses it a lot on their pre-fight. Al Bernstein will cite it. Mora will cite it. And now even ESPN with Joe Tessitore is getting more and more into it. He'll text me or email me back when he receives his content. So this is great stuff, and he'll ask a question. To take it a step further. So yeah, it's evolved into more than just a live, punch counting service over time.
Yeah, and people love stats, and that's pretty much what CompuBox is. And I think fans forget clean punching is one of the 4 scoring criteria in professional boxing. So you go back to that Pacquiao-Horn fight. Pacquiao won the battle of punching. To me, it was so clear to see who was landing cleanly and who wasn't, and who was getting more of their work done with the grappling and mauling and forearms and headbutts. But there's 4 different scoring categories, but professional boxing is the hurt business. And oftentimes, and you guys have done studies, I want you to talk about this, the guy who's winning the battle of the punching in professional boxing wins the fight the overwhelming majority of the time, correct?
Again, over 90% of the time, the guy that throws and lands more punches wins the fight. It's just.
And you're not just throwing that number out there. You guys have done reporting. You've gone back and looked at fight results. You've done studies.
On record saying it that it's a fact that, again, 9 out of 10 times the guy that throws and lands more wins the fight. It's just it's rare. Somebody will rally. Someone will be getting pummeled all over the ring, and they'll land that one big shot and pull the fight out. It happens. It happens on occasion, but not that frequently.
And it's that 10% that's people watch boxing. It's that 10% that makes boxing great, I think, because in so many other sports, we could find trends and stuff where it's 98, 99% tells you the story. But boxing has that 10% where, like you said, one punch can change everything. Or you have judges being influenced and maybe it skews their scorecards. But you can generally predict what's going to happen. And I guess I wanted to ask, have you guys done any trending analysis for Canelo Golovkin yet? In how you see that fight playing out based on the punch numbers you have?
Yeah, I did. We've done some preliminary numbers. I haven't really dove into it yet, but from a pure statistical standpoint, Canelo only throws in the 40s. He's not busy. He's not a busy fighter. He's accurate. He's accurate with the power punch, but he throws in the 40s, where the junior, I think, well, this is middleweight. The middleweight average is around 58 thrown per round. So he's throwing in the mid 40s. He's more of a counterpuncher. He wants his opponent to come to him. Golovkin throws in the 60s. He's busier. He's busy with the jab. He's busier with the power punches. So from a work rate standpoint, Golovkin has the edge, but he also gets hit more than Canelo. Canelo's defense is better than people think.
I agree.
He slip punches well, and for whatever the reason, opponents just don't get off on him as much as you would think. I don't know if it's his power, or he doesn't give you many openings because he's only throwing in the mid 40s. That's Floyd Mayweather's MO too. Yep. He doesn't. He only throws 40. Floyd throws 40 punches around.
Klitschko too,
and so damn accurate and efficient. But by only throwing 40, he's not giving you any opportunities to counter because he's letting his hands go so infrequently. So from a numbers standpoint, Golovkin has the edge as far as output. But Canelo hits hard, it goes to the body well, and there's other factors. I think Triple G may be slipping a bit. So, again, from a hard numbers standpoint, Golovkin has the edge, but Canelo is efficient. He doesn't throw as many, but he lands. He's got a good connect percentage with the power shots, and his defense is really good.
Real quick, I wanted to see, do you have one of the pads that you guys use to track everything? Do you have one of them around that you could show?
I just happen to have one handy.
Have one handy. There we go. I just wanted to show this if we could. Could you
it's basically
straighten it up just a little bit? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
An accountant's keypad that was converted.
So now that top row is jabs?
This is jab miss, jab connect, and now we've added a body, jab to the body. We're trying to develop additional stats to tell what fighters jab to the body, what fighters jab to the head. Most jab to the head. It's infrequent where a fighter will jab to the body. And then there's power miss, power connect, and power to the body. That's the other three sets of keys.
So those white keys, that's your
that's the markers, right? And then there's one key for knockdowns as well.
Okay, so all that gets tracked in, because
yeah, all that gets tracked in, and that's another misconception too. Power punch. People will say the uninformed will say, how could he land 300 power punches and not knock them out? We call it a power punch for lack of better description. It's a non-jab. In a statistical world, I think power punch sounds better than non-jab. So
yeah,
let's clear that up too. Power punch is a non-jab in boxing, in COMPUBOX terminology, and the program has pretty much been that way from day one. When we initially designed the program, we started with the jab because every book I read, everyone I talked to or read about said everything begins with the jab in boxing. So that's why we went with jab and then power punch. We experimented with additional keys, uppercuts, hooks.
That's what I was going to ask about.
Too many keys, it compromises the accuracy. So we try to keep it, as simple as possible with those 6 keys.
So there's an example.
One fighter each.
There's an example where you guys you thought about innovating and adding different things, but it compromised your accuracy. You did the studies and you decided against it, even though it probably would have made your program a little more interesting and exciting for fans because they would have seen different punches, but it compromised your accuracy. So you said no.
Yeah, because it's it's a live service. I mean, it's got to be accurate. It's live TV. I mean, there's no margin for error with live TV. Although we've always said there's a 2% margin of error. That's another misconception. We never came out and said we get every punch. We were straightforward by saying that. But yeah, we experimented with additional keys, but it just sacrifices the accuracy. So we scrapped that.
Let's talk about the 2% margin of error, and then I'll let you go because I know I'm taking up a lot of your Saturday here. But how did you come to the 2% margin of error? Did you go back and look at fights you scored live and go back and look at them again? And how many fights did you look at if you did that?
We just started. I would say, yeah, we went back and recounted a lot of, the live fights we did. I would say it was at least 100 fights that we went back and recounted. And hey, look, I'm not going to come out and say we would count every punch. That would have been asinine. Right. So to say, nobody, it's just not physically possible. Even with two operators, one watching one fighter each, that we just went back and recounted, and that's the, that's the number we came up with. Because, who would be fooling ourselves and the public and the media and the networks who signed the checks by saying, hey, man, we get every punch, we don't miss anything. That would be just asinine. So, it's 2%. It's
2% of the stuff you looked at. All right, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover here. Thank you so much for taking some time on your Saturday to talk to me about some of this stuff. And I wanted to do it in this format, other than, rather than just writing an article, so that people could see a conversation going two ways and we get the information out there. Let's close it with this. What would you like some of the fans / media to know about CompuBox? Like, if there's anything else we haven't covered here, maybe innovations you guys have planned or future stuff coming, or just clearing the air on some things. Is there anything we haven't covered here?
Look, I don't really have to defend myself. I'm tired of it, the criticism. But again, like I said, it comes with the territory. Would we like to come up with a program that measures the impact of punches? That would be the missing link. And then we can tell you how many, how hard. But the technology, it's just not there. They tried it around the wrist, the accelerometer, and it just didn't work. It didn't translate. It's great when you hit a heavy bag in a gym, but when you get into certain venues with the frequencies and whatever, they just couldn't get it to work properly. That was the hope, to do that and mesh our numbers with the impact. Another company was out there they put the sensors in the gloves, which was ideally the way to do it, right in the knuckle of the glove to measure the force. Too many red flags with glove. There's got to be 7 glove manufacturers out there. Yeah. You'd have to get every company on board. Then the fighters are queasy. The fighters are queasy about, hey, there's something in my glove. It gets in their head. It's like in baseball, you mess with a bat, with a hitter's bat, they get weird. So the fighters, they didn't really like the idea of the sensor in the glove. The trainers weren't all on board. So yeah, would we like to create the perfect program? Of course we would, but it's just technically it's not possible. So, all I can say is we'll continue to do the best we can, and hopefully, fans will accept CompuBox for what it is.
All right, Mr. Cannobio, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll let you go now. I really, really appreciate it.
Same to you, Michael. Thank you. Anytime.
All right, have a good one.
All right, take care. Thank you.
You too.